Hi, welcome to Last Week in Local with Mike Blumenthal and Carrie Hill. Mary is not working today, as far as we know. Anyways, we hope she's enjoying her time.
She's on a boat.
Elsewhere.
She's happy.
Uh, she's happy. That's right. If she's happy, everybody else is happy. It's good. I just want to know we do not have a sponsor for this quarter. So if you're interested in sponsoring our newsletter, podcast, and blog post, please reach out to us. We'd be glad to discuss it with you. And so with that, I'll kick off the news. So in my category of dystopian article of the week, which typically covers the sharing economy, which, as you recall from previous conversations, was going to sort of free humanity from the burdens of labor, has done just the opposite. So DoorDash delivery driver allegedly stabs restaurant owner, but interestingly, when he was done, he then still delivered the food. So I can only imagine the Yelp review, right? Yelp reviewer, who is perhaps some Yelp, whatever they call them, special Yelp categories, right? Writes a 4-paragraph review. The food was delivered all bloody. I would have given a 1-star review, but the driver was very cheerful. This suit brought against the driver just demonstrates DoorDash's sort of cavalier attitude towards vetting drivers carefully and putting due diligence into all sides of the marketplace.
Well, can you imagine? I just can't imagine. They're hiring people and they're giving them people's home addresses. And are they doing background checks on them? Are they sending murderers and rapists to people's house so that they can case the joint? I mean, what's the process by which this is happening? And is there a process? And if there is, I don't really have a lot of faith in it working at this point in time.
Right. Although in DoorDash's defense, they do it at a lot lower scale than, say, Google with massive spam in the locksmith,
Right.
garage door, appliance repair industry, right? I mean,
Sure.
I've been looking at a network in Canada. It's got thousands of listings. They all go to a call center and same issue, right? And Google does it at massive scale with a huge amount of market share and mind share. So if you're going to cast that blame around, you got to spread it around.
Yeah, sure.
Than just
I
DoorDash.
think anybody who sends anybody to my house ought to be aware who they're sending.
Absolutely. So on the plus side of the dystopian report, last week, delivery app drivers rallied for higher wages in San Francisco. So these companies make it very difficult to find out who the other drivers are. So it's a significant event when they start organizing together. In looking at some of the data, one of the drivers reported that they saw like a 20% decrease in pay over the last 3 years on Instacart. Which is consistent with the way these marketplaces typically work. But it's interesting that drivers are starting to organize, and hopefully that together they can create some sort of environment in which they can get both reasonable benefits and a living wage. DoorDash.
Well, I think if anybody needed to unionize, it would be that group.
Right.
It's obvious that they're being exploited and treated like garbage because at this point they can.
Right.
What are they going to do about it? So I sort of feel like, and you're right, I think that the more popular it gets in a market and the more drivers they get in a market, then they can start saying, well, you take it or leave it. This is what we're going to pay you, because they've got people standing in line waiting to take it. It's terrible.
Right. Yeah, it's a race to the bottom. It's interesting that DoorDash has sort of become the new Uber in terms of, one faux pas after the next. And they don't even have a guy like Travis Kalanick at the head, right? I mean, who was it? But DoorDash did say that they'll be rolling out a new pay model at the end of September. They would not be specific, so we'll wait and see what that looks like. I'm not getting my hopes up.
Yeah, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. Again, I mean, the new pay model could just be another one of these to people.
So this is interesting. In 9 to 5 Google, GM cars to start using Android Automotive in 2021 model years. So Android Automotive is different than Android CarPlay, whatever it's called. Android Automotive is the central brains that sort of sits as middleware between all of the technology in the cars and all of the dashboard and user experience and consumer interaction. So it's a much deeper embedding into the car system. Google has had only limited success with this product. I think Volvo and one or two others. So getting into GM's is a big issue because GM's 35% market share, one of the larger manufacturers in the world. So it puts Google in the middle of both learning a lot more about what's going on in cars as well as user behaviors. It probably gives manufacturers much more information than they've ever had about user behaviors. And I think it portends the likelihood that if past trends in Google Maps is any indication, the likelihood that every surface in your car will become some sort of behavioral interaction, either gamification or more likely some sort of marketing. So now not only will it tell you that you're low on gas, it'll tell you that you're low on gas and the cheapest gas is from
this place
7-Eleven.
for an ad.
That's right. So I think we can, and
Or,
the last place I want ads is in the sanctity of my driver's space, but
right. Or, we talked in the pre-talk, I brought it up, I don't know, but this could be like the first foray towards Google self-driving car kind of
I think it will give them a lot of information that they can use to improve their self-driving car for sure, because they'll get road information, road conditions, that sort of stuff, which will be valuable in terms of them improving all their automotive products. So it's a huge win for Google. We'll see what it means for the automotive industry.
Right.
Good Whiteboard Friday from local youth speaker Joy Hawkins. How does the local algorithm work? A good summary of how she sees things working, what things are currently working, what aren't, how the local algorithm differs from organic in terms of the 3-pack and the results there. Worth a listen to. Joy's always got tidbits of information, even if you know the industry well, you're going to learn something from the presentation. It was well done.
I'm super excited for it, just to kind of link to it from audits and stuff, because I think it's a good kind of overview of how this works, and it does good to illustrate how complicated it is. It's not just like we can do this thing and poof, it's not magic. So I thought it was great. I love having that resource available.
Google My Business announced that they were removing the remaining distance-based service areas from Google My Business Help. What this means is if you previously went in and set a radius around your location, they're going to switch to the most proximal geography. As you pointed out in the pre-talk, you need to be sure that the geography you provide is a high enough. You need to go in and make sure that the geography they provided is broad enough. If it isn't, you need to go in and put a higher order geographic entity. And so if they left you in a neighborhood or a city and you really do the county, then you want to be sure to enter the county in as your service area. This is part of a series of changes that have been going on in the SAB world for the past 9 months. We'll see where it all leads. Don't know.
I'm excited to hear Joy's talk at Local U Advanced about SABs. I'm hoping that she has some insights into what we can do with them, because it's kind of a frustrating process at this point in time.
I did a blog post at Gather Up, ran into an interesting situation where a hotel was offering an incentive to its users that if it was a green hotel and if the user left a TripAdvisor review, the hotel would make a donation to a charity, which on the surface is very benign, very user-friendly, sort of not-for-profit friendly, but it still struck me as being in the continuum of user incentives, so I wanted clarification. TripAdvisor responded that it was in fact against their terms of service and shouldn't be happening. So just a caution that any of these types of incentives, to be in compliance with the FTC, for example, if like it was first party, you'd have to share the type of incentive with the review, directly with the review. The review, you have to say, this was the incentive the person received. In terms of Google and TripAdvisor, if you haven't, it just violates their terms of service. If you get caught, Google and TripAdvisor would take them down.
I told a client on the phone the other day, I said, the only thing you can offer is a thank you. That's it, basically.
Yes. Although, again, if you're doing your own review system, after the fact, you could offer a thank you. You could reach out to them by email and offer a more significant thank you after the fact as well. You might be able to incentivize them giving your email address, though, which has value to you in a broader sense and isn't incentivizing the review. So if you're looking to thread that needle, not that I recommend threading needles, all too often, yes, somebody thinks it should be threaded the other way and you get your hand slapped. And then finally, my last piece is an article from 39 Celsius, what to do when your Google My Business listing is falsely suspended. It's a listing that was consistently getting taken down. The listing is one of those listings where it was sort of a spammy name, like industry, city kind of name, but he had done all due diligence in terms of helping the customer change over his DBAs and all his business filings. So it was a legitimate spammy name, even if it was spammy, and in a very competitive market where people consistently would report that sort of stuff. It was, he would have it taken down, he'd get it back up usually in a couple of days, but then it got taken down when the feces hit the Google veritable fan after the Wall Street Journal article, and they were so backlogged, it took them 40 days to get it up. Apparently, after some time in taking down, it loses its strength as a listing, and he got back a listing, but it wasn't the original listing. Anyways, back and forth, finally, he regained his rank in the original listing and the reviews. All was good, but it took him a long time to get there. Many, many weeks. So,
and you said something about a subpoena too. Like it wasn't just a please give us this back. There was like had to go down the road towards
they went down the road to lawsuit because the only way to get Google to divulge who is reporting your listing is through a subpoena. So you have to go to court and get the court to adjudicate that it is likely competitor interference, and then give a subpoena to Google to divulge the information they have about who is reporting it.
Interesting.
So, and then apparently Google also simultaneously tells the reporter of it that this is happening. So it's a good way to sort of shoot an arrow across the bow of your competitor who consistently is doing this to you.
Sure. That's nuts.
And over to you.
I found an article on CNBC about the Weworks IPO valuation. Now they're saying it's going to fall below 20 billion. I think the initial valuation was like 49 billion or something like that. So they're cutting it over in over half, I guess, before it goes live. And everybody's kind of up in arms because, of course, the venture capital that invested in them is going to get paid first. And the employees who worked so hard to get them to this IPO are sort of getting hung out to dry a little bit by this. We talked about WeWorks in the past because they're like a company inside a company inside a company. You sort of don't know what their motive is, and you said
with a lot of self-dealing at the executive level, where he owns a lot of the building personally and then rents them back to WeWorks.
Right.
So it's a very convoluted structure.
Right. So you were saying in the pre-talk about how they're positioning themselves as a tech company, not a co-working space kind of thing. But I think that's also tied up in the convolution of who owns what and rents what back to who. Like, are you a real estate company? Are you a tech company? Are you a co-working space? Like, what is this thing? So it's an interesting kind of overview of what's going on with that. And I feel kind of bad for the employees that are kind of stuck in the middle of it right now.
For anybody interested in exploring that, there was an article at Stratechery on what is a tech company. I'll put the link in, but it sort of defines from his point of view how you can decide whether WeWork really is or isn't a tech company. As I recall, his conclusion was they were not.
Right.
But anyways.
Luca Tagliaferro wrote an article over at Search Engine Land about adding FAQ schema to a site and then tracking 1,000 keywords and how they were affected by this FAQ schema. And the benefits were increased click-through rate and taking up more real estate in the SERPs. I'm a big fan of FAQ Schema. I think that it helps small businesses rank for long tail terms or get more real estate for long tail terms. I do think in the local sphere it's a bit limited, because in most cases, if they're showing a map pack, they're not going to show featured snippets. So, but I think it's an interesting kind of look at the benefit of adding FAQ Schema. So I thought that was a good article. There's an article at Vice about how Google Maps is still showing results for queries about abortion clinics that are not abortion clinics. They're secular organizations that are going to do their damnedest to talk these women out of getting an abortion, even though, the queries are very clear, abortion clinic near me, and they're directing them to these family planning places that don't perform abortion and basically scare the crap out of these women that go in there thinking they're going to an abortion clinic. So I know this blew up about a year ago, and there was a lot of outcry over making sure that it was fixed, and it is not fixed. And I find it very frustrating, because there is a restricted category of abortion clinic. It would be very easy to only serve that result. But again, like we've talked about before, I think this is like a 1/3 of 1/2 of 1% problem for Google, and they don't want to spend any time on it. But I think the implications of it are just terrible.
Yeah, it speaks to the dangers of how hyper-localized results are, and that their impacts are hyper-localized. And when you do an analysis at 30,000 feet, you don't see that, and you don't devote resources to it, because it's perceived as long tail component of the algorithm. So it's, one, more costly to solve from a theoretical point of view, and two, not seen that much. But the damage to the people involved is real, and I think the difference between a real Google and the Google we have now would be one that owns up to that reality and deals with it both in terms of their coding, but also in terms of human curation. And
there was a quote in the article by a spokesperson for Google. I don't know what that means exactly, but some PR person, I'm sure, where they said if the website for these secular organizations says they do not do abortions, and Google is serving that up as a result, then that's on Google. But if they don't specifically say on their website or in their online literature or whatever, their GMB listing, that they don't do abortions, then Google can't do anything about it, is basically what he's saying. And I think that that's a cop-out. That's crap, in my opinion. So anyway, it's still a mess 1 year later, and I don't think it's going to get cleaned up anytime soon, which is sad. Go ahead.
No, it's just the reality of local.
Yeah. We're talking about Android Automotive being in Chevy GM cars. I got an invitation today to buy an Echo Auto, which is Amazon's in-car Alexa, basically. It hooks up through your aux or your Bluetooth and connects the Alexa app on your phone to your car so that you can interact with it while you're driving. It'll play music. You can ask it where the nearest gas station is. You can make calls and set reminders. You can add items to your shopping list, which I find kind of handy because I do use my Alexa for my shopping list in my kitchen. So, I think it's an interesting kind of, you mentioned something earlier, middleware. Was that in the pre-talk? Middleware was in the pre-talk.
Yes.
And it is an interesting kind of piece of hardware middleware that kind of brings Alexa into vehicles, because they're probably not going to get in there but through a partnership like Google has with Chevy, or it'll be a long time before they would get in there. So I thought it's an interesting product. I ordered one.
How
see what happens.
How much was it?
It's $25. I mean, it's worth getting one to see what happens with it.
So interestingly, like I have iPhone, and through Bluetooth, mine interacts fine. I don't know why I would need a separate device to implement it.
Do you use Alexa through your iPhone?
No, I
Oh,
use Siri.
and I use Alexa in my house for my shopping list. So if I'm driving down the road and I think, oh, I need to add that to my list, it's really hard to get Alexa up on your phone. Like you can't say Siri,
Oh,
open the Alexa app. It won't do
as a
it.
note, the Siri shopping list is really quite good.
Yeah. if I and in hindsight, if I didn't have Alexa in like 10 rooms in my house, the drop-in feature between the dots is awesome. It's sort of like our intercom in the house. uh, I probably would do that because I have my phone with me everywhere. So, because hey Siri, add this to my list, kind of thing for sure. In fact, now she's
I was
awake.
just envisioning what your data file looked like at Amazon. Carrie frequents the restroom these times of the day.
Right. I'm sure it probably knows way more than I needed to know. I'm just going to live in this utopia where that didn't happen.
Good luck with that, my dear.
Mike is going to be on the Edge of the Web radio podcast. It's a live cast this afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern time, which is 1 o'clock my time. So that sounds like fun. I'll have to listen in. And you guys are going to talk about kind of the review reputation landscape, right?
And Google, in the context of Google.
In the context.
It's also, if you don't catch it live, it will be available as a podcast as well.
Awesome. And then the last thing I have is, don't forget, Local U Advanced is coming up. We're about 2 weeks away. Tickets are limited. We don't have very many spots left, and pricing is going to go up to full price on the 14th. So you have till midnight on the 13th to get your advanced purchase pricing. So get your tickets.
All right. Looking forward to seeing folks there. With that, we'll say goodbye. Thank you for joining us for Last Week in Local. We'll see you next week, and we don't know whether Mary will still be on vacation or whether she'll be working. We'll keep you posted.
See you guys later. Bye.